This is not even half of what is on my autumn TBR. I think we're being a little bit overly ambitious, but we move. Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. I'm Georgia if you are new here, and today I'm going to be going through my very ambitious fall TBR, the books that I want to read this autumn. There's a lot, like a ridiculous amount. I have a lot that are even on my physical TBR, but then I also have a list as long as my arm of books that I don't yet own, that I want to read on my Kindle or that I want to buy. And I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed already. I still have so many summer books that I want to finish reading before we fully get into like October and autumn. I feel like September is kind of like the in-between, but I really want to be getting into like my cozy little fantasy reads. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking because we have a lot to get through. Got myself a little pumpkin maple latte. Autumn bedding is on, like we are feeling the vibes. Okay, let's go. I am not going to really talk about each book like a lot, just because of how much there are on here, like stuff that I want to read. Like we're just gonna have to whiz through them. I'm gonna go on to fantasy because boy, my fantasy TBR for this autumn is insane. It is so ridiculously large. Like I have so many fantasy books I want to read that it's just ridiculous. We're gonna obviously start with the ones that I do have. Okay, we're gonna get two of the big ones out of the way. We're gonna address it here and now that I still have not read these books, and that is finishing the rest of the Massiverse, the Sarah J Maas books. So I do have the entire Throne of Glass series on my autumn TBR, obviously have all of the books here. The way I literally hounded my boyfriend for these books last Christmas and I have not picked up a single one. Ridiculous. If you know me, if you know my channel at all, then you will know that I am obsessed with the ACOTAR series. It is one of my all-time favourite book series. Like I could talk about that series till the day I die. Like literally love it. And I know that some people actually love Throne of Glass even more than ACOTAR, so I'm really excited to get onto this. It's just so daunting going into that because I cannot read. If I'm reading a series, I need to read the books back to back, so I couldn't just read one and then read some other books. Like I have to do it all or nothing. Like I'm starting at book one and I'm finishing it with no breaks. Like I just need to do it. So that is daunting to think about, but I really want to read these this year. I'm hoping I'll be able to finish them this year. I think is there 8 books. Yeah, there's 8 books in here, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish this before the end of the year, but I just don't even know what order to start reading them in. I am going to start them in September. Like I'm holding myself accountable, and one of my goals for the month is to actually start this series. But please let me know which order you have read them in, which order you would recommend, because I just don't know if the tandem read is going to be a little bit messy. I might read them like in publication order because I know that that is actually the order that Sarah J Maas has recommended. And then if I ever do like a full Massiverse reread, I will do a tandem read then. That's what I'm going to stick with, but try and convince me otherwise, please. And then of course, following on from that, I have the 2 Crescent City books. I know that there is actually 3 now, but the other one was not available in a paperback. I don't know if it is now. And I just did not want a 3rd book in a hardback, so I'm waiting until I get the paperback because literally have not even started the other series. Obviously people do say to read ACOTAR, then Throne of Glass, then Crescent City, just in terms of like readability, I think. And I know that they interlink slightly just with like characters being mentioned and things, but I don't know if like that's where you have to read it because of the plot or if it's just like complication level. But yeah, I have the first 2 Crescent City books. We have House of Sky and Breath and House of Earth and Blood. Which one is the first one? Okay, this one is the first one, House of Earth and Blood, and then we go on to House of Sky and Breath. These are some chunky books. They are some big guys, so I do not know when I'll get to these. Don't know if I will get to these this year, but I'm hoping I will. Maybe if like I love Throne of Glass and I'm reminded of how much I love Sarah J Maas is writing and like the worlds that she creates, then I will want to go into these straight away. But I just have so many other books that it's hard, and they're just so big. Anyway, then I have Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. Honestly, I feel like this one is just kind of like a silly little fantasy book. Like, it's kind of rom-com-y, it's kind of a little bit like comedic, I believe. She basically falls in love with the villain. And yeah, I know there's actually the second one of this is out now, so if I like this one, I will pick that one up also. Then I have To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I don't really know much about this one. I just know that I think this is YA fantasy, and it kind of focuses around a sea witch, or like she is turned into a sea witch. There's a sea queen, some kind of like sailor kind of guy that she then captures, or like, wait, hang on, my words are not correlating with what's in my head. So she gets turned into like this thing, and basically there's this guy who is a siren killer, and she basically has to capture his heart or she will remain as this like creature forever. No, she will remain a human forever. But he's a siren hunter and she is actually a siren. I've just confused myself, but I think I know what I mean. Then I have Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which honestly, I'm so excited for this one. I have only recently started my first Ali Hazelwood book, which is The Love Hypothesis, which is obviously pretty different from this one. So Bride is like a fantasy, romantic-y, paranormal kind of romance. It follows a werewolf and a vampire. And I have heard conflicting opinions, but I feel like, guys, as the like Twilight girls, as a Teen Wolf girl, as the Vampire Diaries girl, a werewolf and a vampire does not really mentally freak me out as much as it might other people, which I feel like is a lot of where like the criticism came in, is that people obviously did not want to read about a werewolf and a vampire doing the deed. I don't think that will bother me, but I will say from what I've read of The Love Hypothesis, I just don't think Ali Hazelwood's writing is like my all-time favourite. So I don't know, but I'm excited to get onto this one. I just think it will be kind of funny if her like almost most controversial book is my favourite, because right off the bat, I feel like I've said like, I think I'm going to prefer this one to the rest of her books. I have nothing to base that off. I have no idea. But yeah, I'm actually really excited to get to this one. I'm going to save this for October just because it's kind of giving like obviously the spooky, paranormal, Halloween vibes. Okay, and then the last up on the fantasy list of the physical books that I have are all hardbacks. So first up we have Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing. I have still not got around to this because look at the size of this first of all, and then I have also heard very conflicting things about this in terms of people have said it was too long and that there was not really much plot, it was kind of pointless. So I'm a little bit scared to get to it because I actually did not love Fourth Wing as much as I thought I was going to and as much as other people did. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the book, but it wasn't a 5-star read for me, which I was surprised about. So I'm like, well, everybody loved that book and they didn't like this one as much. So if I didn't love the first book as much as everybody else anyway, I don't think I'm going to like this one. Don't know. Again, I will eventually get around to this because I do want to read like the full series, but I feel like it's just a thing with like second books in a series that they are like a bit of a filler in terms of, I suppose it's a trilogy, because I'm not allowing Akamath to get that same reputation because that changed the trajectory of my life, honestly. Anyway, different story for a different day. But I don't know, I feel like if this is going to kind of give similar vibes as like Reckless by Lauren Roberts, then I'm not sure I want to read it because it's a big old book to be doing like a whole lot of nothing. We'll see. Then I have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I have heard non-stop good things about this first book and I truly do believe that I'm going to love it. Like, I think this has the potential to be a 5-star read for me. So I don't know why I haven't got around to it yet. Like, genuinely could not tell you, don't know. From what I gather, the kind of like fantasy element in this is that there's like a magical typewriter, they write letters to each other, there's some war going on, and you kind of have like mythical gods, something along those lines, don't really know. I feel like this is kind of like a lower stakes fantasy, maybe like a cozy fantasy. Again, I do not know because I don't read up on books before I actually buy them or read them. But yeah, I love me a romantasy read if you have not gathered already. I also do want to read Ruthless Vows, which is the sequel to this book. That is on my TBR, but I don't have that one as of yet. Last one on the physical TBR is Never by Jessa Hastings. Everybody's going to be shouting at me for the fact that I still have not read this book, because Jessa Hastings is one of my favourite authors and the Magnolia Park series is one of my favourite series. So why have I not read this one, you ask? Don't know. I think I just kind of got a little bit scared because there was conflicting opinions when it first came out. I feel like people were expecting it to be like the Magnolia Park series, but like it's obviously not going to be. And then there was a lot of criticism on like the way that the story was told, the dialogue, things like that. So it kind of just put me off a little bit, and I wanted to like wait for all of that to like die down a little bit before I read it, and then it's just slowly got pushed further and further down the TBR. But I am desperate to read this one. I just think the way that she writes is so beautiful, and I feel like the way that she'll write that in a fantasy, in a Peter Pan retelling no less, will just be stunning. Okay, so that was all of the physical books on my fantasy TBR. Now we are going to reel off some of the books that I either plan to read on my Kindle or that I want to buy that fall under like the fantasy, romantasy category. Buckle up, because there are a lot here. And again, I know nothing about them, so I'm not really going to talk about them much. I'm just going to like fire them off at you. Okay, so first up I have the Belladonna trilogy. Know nothing about this one at all. I just know the covers are absolutely stunning, and I really want to get round to reading the series. I've heard quite good things. I don't know if it is YA. Literally not a clue. I think is Death potentially like an actual character in this series, or in the first book at least, or am I maybe mixing that up with something else? Then I have One Dark Window. Again, know nothing about this book, absolutely nothing. I have just heard pretty good things about it. And then one book that I have been hearing non-stop recently is Quicksilver. Guys, I hate to say it, but again, I know nothing about this book. Literally zero. I have no idea of the plot, like what kind of fantasy it is, not a clue. But every time I open TikTok, I'm just being bombarded with people telling me to read that book. Or is it part of a series? I don't know, but either way, that is pretty high up on my TBR. Then I have the Natural series, which people have like coined as like a YA teen sort of Criminal Minds. I believe it follows like a group of teenagers that have like powers, and they work alongside the FBI to try and solve cold cases. That just sounds right up my alley, and it also now is all on Kindle Unlimited, so I am really excited to get onto that one. Another one that is on Kindle Unlimited but intimidates me purely because the size of the series is The Zodiac Academy. Don't know what this is about. I think there's about 10 books in the series now, but I just hear such good things about it. I feel like the books are meant to be really sort of like fast paced, and like you just keep going and going, and then you're at the end and you need to pick up the other one immediately. So like I'm excited to do that, but I just have so many series on my TBR and so many books on my TBR that seems like a big feat to try and tackle. But I will get there eventually. And then I also have the Book of Azrael as well. These ones kind of give me like dark academia sort of fantasy. I don't know why. I feel like they might be like set in like a school, like a magical kind of school kind of vibe. Then I have When the Moon Hatched. Again, this is another one that has been all over my For You page, all over my Instagram, because first of all, the cover is stunning. And I just feel like I've heard quite a lot of things about this, but I don't know if it takes quite a lot of brain power for what you get out of it, from what I've gathered. Another one that is like really high up on my TBR, I want to start this one hopefully in September, is The Crimson Moth, or is it The Heartless Hunter? I'm not actually sure which one is like the American name and which one's like the UK name. Whichever one it is, that one is so high on my TBR. I believe we have a witch and a witch hunter, and that kind of trope is going to do it for me. Like the high stakes, the tension, everything like that, like not knowing, the suspense, just love it. And then last up on my fantasy TBR is The Serpent of Wings and Night. Again, I know nothing about this book, so sorry, but I just want to read it because I've heard a lot of good things, and I believe it is on Kindle Unlimited. Please tell me things about these books without sort of like spoiling it. Like try and convince me to read them, because I actually don't mind going in blind. Like I kind of love going in blind for a book because I feel like it just like builds everything up even more, and you are obviously way more surprised at things, like a trope, anything like that. Like I love going in blind to a book, so I don't mind. But I appreciate that it might be annoying that I've just sat here and said that I know literally nothing about probably 10 books. Then we are getting to the romance section. You guys know I love me a romance book, but I will say in the autumn, I do actually prefer like a romantasy. I just feel like they fit the cozy vibes a little bit more. But there's a few new releases coming out that I want to add to my romance TBR. So we have Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the third book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I am really excited for this one. So this one follows Teddy and Gus, and we have been getting like little hints at them throughout both of the two first books, and I have been saying that this one will be my favourite. Like, I just think I'm going to love it. It's kind of given like enemies to lovers, like the angst. It's sisters. Wait, I was going to say sister's best friend, but it would be easier to just be like, oh my god, no, wait, not brother's best friend. It's like her best friend's brother. Oh my god, why could I not think of the trope, best friend's brother? Is he a single dad? I feel like I am like forgetting. It must be him because Wes in the last book did not have a child. So it must be Gus that's a single dad. But like, I love me a single dad trope. He's also a cowboy, so that's like two of my favourite tropes in one. And then you add best friend's brother in there as well. Like, I'm gonna eat it up. I've heard such good things about this one from people that have had like an arc review, and I just love this series like as a whole, and I do feel like this one is potentially going to be my favourite. Then we have Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver, which is the second book in, is it the Rose Hill Ranch series? This one also follows a single dad. So we have Weston, who we see in the other books, and then we have, is she called Skylar? And she's like a country music star. We've seen a little bit of her in the first book also. I believe she's coming to record at the recording studio that Ford owns that we see in the first book, and Weston obviously works like on the ranch, on the land. I feel like there's going to be completely different like lifestyle types, so there's going to be like a little bit of angst there maybe, but I just can't wait. I love Elsie Silver's writing, and I did love literally every book that I've read by her, so I am excited to get onto this one. Then we have Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. So this one is following Wes and Liz that we see in Better Than the Movies. This kind of follows them when they're going off to college, and I don't really know much about where this is going to go, what it's going to be like, if they're going to stay together, if they're not. I have no idea. I just know that that was like such a refreshing read, so easy to read, so cute, and I'm excited to read the next one. Okay, just quickly going back to the physicals that are on my little romance section. First up, I have If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan, don't know. This is the sequel to If He Had Been With Me, which is kind of like a sadder romance. I feel like this one is potentially maybe going to be more sad just because of what happens in the first book and like what we know. I feel like this is going to hit different being from Finn's POV. Yeah, that's all I really have to say on that one. Then I have You With a View by Jessica Joyce. Honestly, don't know much about this one. I just know, I think that they go on like a road trip or something. It's something to do with like content creating or something like that. I've just heard really good things about her writing style. I know that X-Files as well is also one that is on my TBR, because again, just heard such good things. Like, so many people have rated them 5 stars, and I'm really excited to get to it. Also, look how floppy this book is. Literally love it. Another sad one that we have on the TBR is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I don't really know what this one's about. I believe they are like best friends. He is kind of like gonna bring the troubled past kind of vibe. There's secrets there. There's kind of like, not tension, but like an underlying issue maybe. I just know that people sob at this book, and I have not cried over a romance book in so long, and I'm kind of like yearning for that feeling, you know. I kind of want to be emotionally destroyed, so maybe this is one that'll do it for me. Then I have From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I have never read a single Mariana Zapata book. I know she is like the queen of slow burn, and this one gives me the wintry vibes just purely because of the fact that it's set on like an ice rink. I think they're both figure skaters. Again, it's slow burn, kind of like enemies to lovers, I believe. I don't know. I've never read any of her books. Again, the floppiness is unmatched. I love it. But it seems kind of long, especially if it's going to be a slow burn. Like, it's 500 pages nearly. For a romance book, that is pretty long. But I feel like I need to give it a go, and it kind of does really fit the wintry vibes. Then the last one that I have is Under the Sycamore Tree by B. Celeste. Again, I feel like this is kind of like a sadder romance book. I think that somebody's gonna die in this, honestly. The main character has been going through it. Her sister has died to some autoimmune disease. Her dad's left, and she has been diagnosed with the same thing that has killed her sister. She meets this guy, but he is kind of like the sad guy, I'm guessing. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know people have told me this is sad. So I'm kind of preparing myself to cry at it and for somebody to die. So yeah. Then the only other two romance books that I have on my TBR that I actually don't own are The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, just because, do I need to say any more? It gives like the ultimate autumnal vibes. And then I also have Leather and Lark, which is the second book to Butcher and Blackbird, which I actually was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed that book. I just found it so different to anything I'd read because it does follow like serial killers. They are all kind of like in that kind of genre, I believe. I don't know where this second book is gonna go. I don't really know much about the characters. I can't really remember much about the characters. But I feel like it's gonna again be more of like a darker romance, but not in the sense that a lot of dark romances normally are. I feel like it's just gonna centre around murder, but it's almost like comedic in a way. I don't know. I am excited to read that one. Again, I might save that for like October time. So on my literary fiction TBR, the books that I actually own, first up we have On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Honestly, I don't really know a lot about this. I have had this on my TBR for a while. I just know that it's about an immigrant family, I believe. Maybe like the son of the first generation immigrant parents. Like, I'm not 100%. It's like his sort of letter to his mum. I'm guessing like about his upbringing, about his life and everything like that. I have just heard like a lot of really good things about this in terms of like the writing style, and I think it's like quite moving, which for somebody that feels things so deeply is probably not the best. But I'm just really excited to get into this one. A similar sort of vibe to that one actually. I don't know why they give me similar vibes, but I have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce things. This is maybe like a romance interweaved with a literary fiction, because I believe she can time travel, or like there's something to do with it kind of like transgresses time or something. I don't know. You're going to realise I do not know anything about half of the books on my TBR, because I have realised that I really do prefer going into books blind, like not really knowing much about them, not knowing what to expect, any plot lines, etc. So I know nothing about this, apart from, again, that the writing style is meant to be beautiful and that it's quite sad, I think. Then I have Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. Again, know nothing about this one. All I know is that it kind of centres around, I think this one is more of like a literary fiction with romance, or like, I definitely don't think I would class this as a romance book. I think it kind of focuses around video games, or the like main characters have video games as like an interest. It's kind of like a then and now timeline, maybe, I think, or like they originally knew each other in childhood and now it's following them as adults or a little bit older, I believe. Again, I don't know, I feel like this has deeper themes. My friend did actually compare this the other day to A Little Life, which does not bode well for me. A little bit scared about that now, actually. Then I have Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Melos, is that how you say her name? I have heard conflicting things about this, but her recent book, I think, is it called Blue Sisters, I've heard such good things about, and I do also want to get to that one too, but I feel like I should read this one first. I know that they don't connect or anything like that, but I just feel like to get to know her writing style a little bit better, I should maybe start off with this one. But I believe this is like a, again, literary fiction with themes of romance. I believe it follows a couple, but it's done in more of a sort of way about their life rather than them two being together. I honestly don't know. Who's surprised? Not me. But the cover is beautiful. I, again, have heard conflicting things about this. People either love it or feel a little bit indifferent towards it. So I'm kind of like excited to see where I will stand, if I like her writing style, everything like that. Then I have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Obviously, this is a classic. I have actually read little bits of this before. This is actually my nana's favourite book of all time. She loves it so much. And I read little bits of it maybe like when I was in school or in college, but I really just want to go back and read like the full book. I am trying to read through some classics. They're not really my favourite, but I want to try and read like 1 or 2 classics a year. And the bits that I did read of this, I really liked it. I love the movie. Like the film with Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, Timothée Chalamet is one of my favourite movies ever. It's just such a comfort film to me, and I really do want to read the book so I can kind of like evaluate how much it differs. Like I said, I have read little bits of the book, but not the full thing. Next up, I don't know if this should fall in this category because for some reason I always thought that this was a fantasy book, but I don't think it is. I think it falls more under like a literary fiction, maybe with hints of fantasy. I don't know if I've just made up the fantasy element altogether, but look how big this book is. I actually bought this when I went to Paris 2 years ago in Shakespeare and Company, got it stamped, and I've just never got around to it because it is daunting. Like, that's a very big book. Again, I don't really know what this one is about. This is the author of Yellowface, and I think it kind of deals with similar themes in terms of like racism. Again, don't know fully, but I really do want to get to this one because I don't know, I feel like people really rave about this book and the way that it like kind of discusses the themes and stuff. So excited to get to this one. It just is so daunting. Then the last 2 physical books I have on my literary fiction part of my TBR are both by Frederick Backman. I love his writing style so much. I've read Beartown and Us Against You. So then the next one in that sort of like little trilogy is The Winners. This is the chunkiest of them all, but I just love how he writes. I love this story in particular. Like the Beartown series is one of my favourite books. Like I remember just being so moved. Sounds very cringy, but I remember being like so unexpectedly moved that it really has just stuck with me. And the way that he writes, the way that he tells a story, the way that he describes characters, I'm obsessed with. So I am excited but also a little bit scared to get to this one because I have cried at every single one of his books that I've read so far, so that's great. And then I have Anxious People, which I don't hear as much about this one as the Beartown series. I don't know if this one's maybe going to be a little bit more light-hearted, or if in like his writing style he will still make it kind of sad. But this one kind of follows like a hostage situation, I believe. But yeah, I don't know, the way that he just like writes people, I really do enjoy. And you get a lot of different characters in this story, I believe. So I'm excited to see how he does that. The other 2 books that I have in my literary fiction TBR that I don't have are both by Kristen Hanna, and they are Firefly Lane and The Nightingale. I do actually want to get around to her as an author in general, but these are just the 2 books that I've heard the most about. I know that Firefly Lane is a Netflix show. My mum has actually watched that, but I made a point of not wanting to know what went on in the show and not wanting to know what it was about because I do intend on reading the book. But from what I've heard, her books are really sad. The Nightingale, I actually know nothing about at all, but I actually want to say it's maybe to do with like the war. May have made that up, don't know. But from what I've gathered, her books are quite sad, quite hard hitting, which is not, again, ideal as somebody who feels everything a billion times more than probably normal people do. I actually have 0 thriller books on my physical TBR for autumn. 2 that I've kind of like heard going around recently that are on the top of my head is Something in the Water. Somebody at work actually recommended that to me, and Listen for the Lie, which Sarah Caroli recommended in a recent video, and that one sounded quite good. But then I also do want to read some Bridie Sager books. I think, is it like, okay, I can't think which one it is, but it's got like a house on the front of the cover. I want to read that one, and I'm sure there will be like a few more that I want to read. I actually have a lot of thrillers saved to listen to as audiobooks, but I couldn't tell you what they are off the top of my head. I'll put like something on here somewhere. But guys, I think that is everything that is on my autumn TBR. I feel like I have most definitely forgot to include some books in here, but I don't know, there's just too many. I have so many books around me right now. My Kindle library is full and I'm overwhelmed, and we've not even got into like the middle of September yet. But please do let me know what you are reading, if there's anything else I should add to my TBR. Probably shouldn't, but if there's any books that you want to see me read or that you really recommend, please do let me know. As always, make sure you are following my book Insta and my Goodreads for more sort of like live updates on what I'm reading, what I think about books, full reviews, everything like that. I do hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.